What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the last recap of the Austrian Championship. Now I'm home again, and yeah, you can't win them all. Unfortunately, I finished 4th place today with the draw. With the win, I would have been 2nd for sure, but now due to the worse tiebreak than my other rivals with the same points than me, I finished 4th. Just I think two Buchholz behind the 2nd place and half a Buchholz behind the 3rd place. So all a bit unlucky, but yeah, my games have been very good. I think overall, I just calculated the overall accuracy in this tournament, and on average, I had a game accuracy of 94.5, I believe, or 94.3, which is actually, I think, pretty insane. And with that, only to finish 4th place is, I think, kind of a pity. So I think overall my games were pretty good. Some unlucky moments, some chances which I didn't use, but overall I can't complain. There are just some things I should work on, but overall I didn't make any significant blunders. Maybe one, but I think my level of play was pretty okay. So today I played against Lukas Leisch, a very good childhood friend of mine, who is also my age, international master, rated 2400. He's super solid, so I knew that it wasn't going to be easy to beat him. He's very well prepared, has very good openings. So yeah, I wanted to keep chances for as long as possible, but still try and play solid, because even with the draw, I thought I have great chances to get to top 3, which, as we know now, didn't work out as I planned. But yeah, let's have a look at the game. I went for d4. By the way, the game has an accuracy of, I played with 98.9, and he had an accuracy of 99.0. So just engine versus engine, I think. So yeah, the game was pretty high quality overall, but I didn't manage to create that many winning chances. And yeah, then the game, as we'll see, ended in a draw. So I went d4, he replied by playing d5, and he went for the Slav defense, knight f3, knight f6, and now I went e3, obviously knight c3 being one of the other main systems, but I like the system with e3, avoiding the Maran defense, or this kind of semi-Slav, because now I don't need to put the knight on c3, and I can go to d2. The point being that after knight c3, black often has the idea to take on c4, and then go b5, when the knight on c3 is often hit by b4 later on. With the knight on d2, this is not in the picture, and therefore white has some chances to play for an advantage here with knight d2 either, or with bishop d3 first. So yeah, I went for e3, and now he went bishop g4. Other moves being e6 is also possible. Bishop f5 is the main move here, when there's a lot of theory here after knight c3, e6, knight h4. Black both has bishop g6 or bishop e4 here. But he went bishop g4, which often black just gives up the bishop here, but he will then follow up with e6, and overall he's very solid here, has this nice pawn formation here, brings out the bishop, so a very harmonious opening for black in general. I now went queen b3, which was still my preparation. Maybe I should have gone for h3, just keeping more pieces on the board, because what I played is very solid and maybe slightly more pleasant for white, but black is also super solid here. After h3, as I said, bishop takes f3 is a move, but bishop h5 is the main move. And then white has some ideas with g4 later on, knight e5. So would have been a better way to play for a win, I believe. But I went queen b3, now queen b6. Now he doesn't want to take here. Queen takes b7 is possible, and yeah, white is winning this pawn, and then he will recapture on f3. So queen b6, and now knight e5. So that's also the other point of queen b3, just to step out of this pin here, and now I can attack the bishop with knight e5. Bishop f5, c takes d5, still prep here. Now queen takes b3. If he takes now with the pawn, then I have queen takes b6, and now he has these double pawns here. When I can make some pressure here, knight c3, knight b5, and he's still quite underdeveloped here, so I would have some chances here to play for an edge. So we went queen b3, which is still theory, a b3, and now you could argue black could also take cd5, and now I have these doubled pawns, but now I'm just too fast here. I can play knight c3, and then I have some ideas again with knight b5, threatening knight c7, or simply b4, b5, and yeah, black is not in time here to consolidate. So knight takes d5 has to be played, bishop d3. I have to watch out for some knight b4s here, threatening knight c2, so I have to exchange these bishops here. Still theory for both of us here. Knight a6, black wants to go to b4. In general, what's important to mention about this position, I have these doubled pawns here, which can be a disadvantage in some cases, but I also have the open a file here, and I also have more space in the center. I have one central pawn more than black, and I have some squares here for the knight. So as I said, white is maybe slightly better, but black is super solid, of course. So bishop d2, e6, now knight a3, and I think here I mixed up. I think king e2 is what I intended to play here. Now also the point being, black wants to push c5, but now I can give the exchange here. Rook takes a6, b takes a6, d takes c5, and even though white is not winning on the spot here, just an exchange and a pawn, but white has great compensation. The knight on d5 can be kicked out by playing e4, then for example knight a3, knight c4, and this pawn on a6 is also super weak, so white has fantastic compensation here. So king e2 is maybe more accurate, but what I played knight a3 also makes sense. What speaks for king e2 is that later on I could maybe put the knight to d2 when it can go to e4. On a3 the knight is kind of restricted and has to go to c4 later on, so king e2 may be more accurate. But I played knight a3, and now during the game I was thinking now c5 is possible, and then I remembered that I should start with king e2, because then after c5 I have rook takes a6, as we saw. But it turns out this is also not clear. I could still fight for an edge here by playing e4 when he's still underdeveloped, and I might have some initiative here. So he went for knight b4, more solid. I took on b4, bishop takes b4, I took again, and now king e2. And what I remembered here, that if I start by playing king e2, then I have a better version, because my preparation went as follows. Now knight b4, take here, and now I think very instructive, my preparation I think was to play g4 here. So what I remembered was that white has to try something on the king side here if he wants to play for something, and I will just push my pawns g5, h4, and then the knight will come to e4, and white has some small chances to play for something. But what we had in the game here, now after king e2, what I thought is very smart for him to play h5, and now I don't have anything to play for, basically, because now I cannot get g4 anymore. I would have probably played h4 and then for some f3, g4, trying for something, but I think this would have been the way, even though how he played was also fine. King e7, I went knight c4 first, because now I thought anyway he will probably not go h5, which he didn't. He went knight d5 back, and now after knight f5, rook b8, now I took my chance to play g4 just to gain space on the king side. What I also wondered during the game was what happens if he just plays h5. I have to go g5, and then let's say he just waits with g6. Even here, it felt like it should be something for me, but the position is so closed that I didn't see how to make any progress, basically. I can always play e4, but then also the pawn on d4 becomes weak. So even here, I did not really see, even though the engine gives some small edge for white, I didn't really see how to make progress. But he went rook c8. Obviously, this knight on a5 is very strong, hitting the pawn on b7, and he cannot go b6 because the pawn on c6 is hanging. So he goes rook c8, now intending to go b6 and then a5. So he went back knight c4, hitting the pawn on a7 now, a6, and now I went rook a5. In general, he wanted to push c5, which makes a lot of sense. If he gets this, then he would be completely fine. So I went rook a5 to prevent this. I also thought here about playing e4. Now kicking away the knight, but in general I thought the knight will come to b5, and then the pawn on d4 is really a weakness, so I did not want to do that. So I went rook a5 first, rook c7. His plan being in many cases rook c8 and then to go c5. I went knight e5 back to have knight d3, and I thought if I get knight d3, then I will definitely have some chances, just stopping c5 forever. But he went knight b4, which was a very strong move. And if I go knight d3 now, if he manages to exchange these knights, there's just nothing happening. He will put the rook to d5, and black is super safe. So I went rook a4. If I do anything else, he will just go b6 and then a5, for example, rook c1. I thought b6, and yeah, now the knight on b4 protects the pawn on a6, rook a4, and now a5, and again, I thought he's just super solid here. Now he managed to get this setup, and I didn't think there's anything for me here. So I went rook a4 with the idea that now after knight d5, I have knight d3, and again, now I probably achieved something, but he played the very good move b5, which I still saw after before I played rook a4. The point is just that after rook takes b4, he has a5. So I have to take this, otherwise, let's say I go back, then I thought he just pushes c5, and if someone's better, it's probably already him, because now the knight on b4 is very strong, protecting the pawn on a6, and I have these doubled pawns. So I have to go into this, and after a5 here, d5 is the only move. And he has to take on b4, because now if he takes on d5, I can step away with the rook. But actually a very nice idea with a5 here, just trapping the rook. And after d5, now we get this forced sequence a b4, knight c6, takes. And in this endgame, I thought I still have some chances, because first of all, he needs to spend some time collecting this pawn on c6, and I have this pawn already on g4. And after king d6, g5, now my plan was to bring the rook to the fifth rank and attack the pawn on h7. Very instructive. Now, if the pawn is on g5 here, this pawn on h7 or the pawn on f7 can be attacked. So after king c6, I played rook g1. By the way, just to point out, I also thought about this pawn endgame here. After rook c8, for example, king d3, but there's just nothing for me here. Even though white looks to be more active, I thought he can just go f6, and he will just wait king d6, king c6, and there's no way for me to make any progress. So I tried g5 and now rook g1 with the idea of rook g4 and rook h4, simultaneously hitting the pawn h7, and also after rook g4, I'm keeping an eye on this potentially weak pawn on c5, on b4. So rook d8, rook g4, rook d5. Now I cannot take on b4 because of rook takes g5. So I tried e4 just to kick away the rook here. If I play h4, I just thought he would go king c5. And yeah, again, position is just equal because after rook f4, he has rook f5. And the pawn endgame is always nothing for me. So I went e4, rook c5, king d2, just guarding the square on c2. King d6, f4, just preparing rook h4. So prepare... by defending the pawn on g5, f6 I took, and rook h4. And here it still felt like it's some pressure for black, even though the computer says it's just 0-0. But we both felt that it's quite unpleasant for black from a practical point. So he played rook c7, protecting the pawn on h7, rook h6, and yeah, now he has this problem here that his rook is getting passive, and yeah, my rook on h6 is doing a great job. What would have been better is to probably get active here by rook g7, but it was something to calculate here. After rook g2, I have some options. I could go king c1, also king d3 is something I thought about, and here to go f5, also not entirely clear what's happening. Objectively it's equal, but practically it's far from clear. So he went rook f7, and now I played king e3, which in hindsight was definitely a missed chance here. King d3 would have been super strong. Still, the position is a draw, but now it gets unpleasant, because if he goes always if he goes back to e7, then I have king d4, and I'm infiltrating here. So in general, what he wants to do is to play king c5, but now I can play king e3, and in the game I played king e3 first, but now after king c5, it's kind of like a mutual zugzwang here. If I go now king d3, he can just give a check and go back. And so yeah, king d3 would have been a nice try, and it puts him into zugzwang here. If king c5, king e3, yeah, now he has to go back. By the way, if he goes to c6, then I always have e5, and now I'm just winning here. Apparently the position is still a draw after king d3 if he finds, I think e5 was the only move. But yeah, this is again not so easy here. Black has to calculate this pawn endgame. I'm actually not sure what is happening here. If king f5, king d4, let's go through this. King c5, king h3. This could be very close for black. h5, let's say I go to a4. And this pawn race, king g2. Yeah, black is still suffering here. I'm a pawn up, should be a draw, but yeah, to see all of this, very, very hard. So king d3 would have been a very nice chance. Still a draw, but would have put definitely some pressure on him. I played king e3, and now he played king c5, and then I realized that if I get this position here with black to move, then I have serious chances. And I tried to get this by playing rook h5 check, and now by waiting. So if he plays king c5 now, I have rook h6 again, and we have the same position here as we saw before. But he understood this as well and played king d6 to have again after rook h6 to have king c5. So I played rook h4, again waiting for him to step in the wrong direction, but he played f5, which is probably a good move. And now I took, which was maybe the last missed chance. Rook h6 was what I intended to play first. It's still a draw. If he takes now and finds rook f5, we will reach probably the same position, or at least very similar after rook h7. He has this very important idea of playing rook c5 here, which I think we will have in the game just with the king on e3. I'm not sure if it makes a lot of difference. Here, I have rook h3 and then rook d3, but yeah, it should be still a draw. Just king e7, computer says h3, but I'm not sure here. Okay, apparently f5, some chances for me, but hard to believe. King f6 is the way to draw, just preventing f5 and then taking on b2. So I took on f5, rook takes f5, rook h7, and now what I missed is this very good move, rook c5. This is the only move to hold the game for black. Now black is just getting active, rook c2, and collecting some pawns. I repeated moves once, rook h8, the idea that now rook c2, I have rook d8 check, and I'm protecting everything, and definitely some winning chances for white. But he prevents this by playing king e7, and now I'm not in time to get back with my rook. I repeated moves once, and now I tried rook b8, which at first it looks like rook c2 is the most logical move, but here at least I thought I have some chances. This position he still has to hold it. Objectively it's a draw, but some practical chances for white. But he played rook h5, which was very strong by him, and now his idea is not to take nh2, but to take on b3 and then to take the pawn on b2. After this, he wouldn't be any material down anymore. I tried h4, rook h4, rook b5, rook h3, king d2. After king d4, I would have still a draw, but here I'm already, yeah, at least a pawn down for now, but even this should be a draw here. Yeah. King f6, king c5, and also a draw. But I tried king d2 and now king c2, and for a moment I thought, again, I have some chances, but he just has king f6, and now it's just a forced draw because he's in time to collect this pawn here. If my pawn would already on b5, then it would be a different story, but now he was just in time to get back with the king, and yeah, this is where we declared a draw. So overall, I think a very good game by both of us. I'm still a bit upset that I didn't try this chance by playing king d3 here. I think, at least from a practical point, it would have given me some chances. But yeah, there's nothing I can do. And yeah, still, I think pretty good performance overall. Fourth place is, of course, unlucky. But yeah, better tournaments will come. And until then, I thank you for watching all of my recaps. You can follow me on my socials in the meantime, on Twitter, on Instagram. You can check out my website, felixblogberger.com. And until then, thank you for watching and see you next time.